This time out, I'm showing you a game that I played against a human opponent. The game itself wasn't anything special, but I just felt like showing this one because it involves a few fundamental things about chess, and I will talk about those in a minute. Anyway, I was black, and this was a fast time control, just 2 minutes with 2 seconds on each move. So on each move, both players get 2 seconds. So let's start. I was black, like I said. d4, knight f6, e3, e6, e4, d5, knight f3, a6, bishop e2. And this is called the Queen's Gambit decline because black doesn't take the pawn on c4. Instead, I played a6. And the point with a6 here is that I'm not so sure if it's the main move here. Yes, I think it is. And well, obviously after a6, well, I could play something else than he did. If something like I don't know, knight c3 perhaps, or knight b d2, or I don't know, maybe even queen c2, something like that. But the point with a6 is that after bishop e2, I simply take, or actually I think bishop d3 is the main move here. But after bishop e2, I just took, and the reason is that now he has to move his bishop more than one time. I mean, normally you don't want to push your you don't want to move your piece more than one time in the opening, but now after bishop e2, d takes e4, and bishop takes e4, and after b5, bishop e2 and c5, black has sort of gained some time in the opening, because obviously this is a very nice structure to have as black. And after castles, I play bishop e7, knight b d2. And instead of c4 here, which I think is the main move, I played knight to c6. And it's simply, I want to put more pressure on this pawn on d4. And as this was a blitz game, my opponent blundered with rook e1, obviously losing the pawn on d4. So I just took. And here comes the point with this video, basically. When you're up a piece or a pawn, like I want this pawn now on d4, you simply want to trade off everything, and the game becomes very straightforward. And here he played bishop f1. He could have played just taken over here and like something like this, but still black is obviously much better because I'm up a pawn, and now I'll manage to trade off even the queens. But after bishop f1, I just traded off first the knight, and then the queen, and then after bishop c5 he made another fundamental mistake when he played bishop e3. Obviously this goes against any general rule in chess. I mean, when you're down a piece or a pawn, you obviously you don't want to give up. I mean, you don't want to keep trading off pieces like he did here. So after bishop e3, not only does it make life a lot easier for me, because now after bishop e3 I've managed to trade off a whole bunch of pieces, and after f takes e3, he even has an isolated pawn on e3. And I didn't bother to castle because obviously my next goal is to trade off my rooks like this. And now he just traded off everything. So as you can see, the game is very straightforward. And now after knight to e2, I get another chance to trade off my bishop, either for the knight or my opponent's bishop. So he moved the knight, and I just took. And as you can see, this is very straightforward, very simple, simply because of my pawn. Obviously, you cannot always use this strategy, because I mean it simply depends on the game, on the positioning on the board. But obviously here my king is way up the board, and I'm up a pawn, and he can't really do anything. So it doesn't really matter. It's almost impossible to make any mistakes for black here. Well, okay, I should talk some about his moves here. He played knight to h2, and after a5 he played king f3. I expected knight f3 and then perhaps b4. The problem with knight f3 is that this pawn over here on e5 has to be protected some way, and maybe I would have to move my knight to, let's say, f3 and then e4 perhaps. But then, you know, he has more squares for the knight, but he didn't do that. He played king f3, and I just played b4. king e2, a4. And again, he could have played knight to f3. I'm not saying that is a fantastic move, but at least the knight is more active. It's not actually doing anything on h2. So, okay, e4 takes away the f3 square for the knight. So he's trying to get back into the game somehow with the knight, but of course this is too late. I mean, there's only g3, but he's not getting anywhere, and there's d2, but that's also not getting anywhere, so f3 was his last chance, basically. And here I started working on my king side, pushing those pawns, and now after king e5 I want to push my f4 pawn. I mean, my f5 pawn up to f4. And after b3 I just took back, and I'm now f4. As you can see, my knight is not only attacking this pawn on b3, but it also protects my pawn on e4. So yes, the b3 pawn is attacked, and now after g takes f4, he plays king b2. King b2. Obviously he has to keep an eye on the b3 pawn here. And yeah, so I just played f3. Now I pick up his last pawn on the king side, and the rest is very simple. It doesn't even matter which order you make all these moves. I mean, this is completely winning for black. Knight f1 is just a ridiculous move. I mean, it's too late to stop the pawn. And even if he could stop the pawn, I would win the knight, and then I would win this pawn on b3, and either make a pawn with this f pawn or with the b pawn. Not even a miracle will save white here. And now after knight f1 I just play knight d3. Just okay, of course I could have made a queen right away, but knight d3, and he ran out of time here, but of course the game is lost anyway. But the game could have continued something like knight d3, king d2, queens, king d1 takes, king d2, and checkmate. So again, queen's gambit decline, and after a6 I just took, and after b5. This is very extremely well known. So an IC6 is not a book move. I believe that the correct move, I mean, if you follow theory, would have been c4, but I play now c6. And now, just to go back to my pawn here, when you're up a piece or a pawn, you want to trade off everything, and then the rest is very simple. And then the mistake here, king bishop e3. I'm not saying that this game is lost for white, but I mean, obviously even bishop g5 would have been better here, or just, I don't know, maybe b3 and bishop b2, just anything to delay the loss at least. So that's about it. I just wanted to show this game, and hope you enjoyed it. See you soon.